1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. To keep you informed, we welcome the candidates who are running for election in our area. They're joining us this morning is Jeff Gregory. He's the Republican primary candidate, 10th District of North Carolina. Mr. Gregory, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, and I thank you for what you do for your community and people and keeping them informed.
Well, thank you very much for saying that, sir. We appreciate it. I always like to start off when I'm talking with somebody to kind of get to know them a little bit. Now, did you grow up here in the state of North Carolina?
I did. I grew up in Kings Mountain, a little textile mill village. Had a large family, 6 brothers and sisters, and uncles and aunts lived all around. Most of them worked in the area.
Right.
So I love small communities, and I love Western North Carolina.
And you grew up there, but now I guess after you grew up, you moved to join the service. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did. After I graduated high school, of course, I worked full time in textiles when I was in high school, and after that, I worked for a large chemical company, and then when I seen textiles kind of fading away, I joined the Air Force and served Okinawa, Japan, and New Mexico. I was involved in the first space shuttle recovery team. I'm a decorated veteran. Served 4 years. I was a sergeant. Once I left there, I got out and worked for Piedmont Airlines for a while.
Piedmont, back before Wright. I remember Piedmont Airlines.
Airline.
Right.
And I saw the writing on the wall when Eastern was going and U.S. Air came in. They was buying Piedmont.
Right.
And I took a test for the post office, and they told me, well, if you take the job now, you can get involved in civil service because they want to do away with civil service. So I got involved and started working carrying mail in Gastonia, and became a supervisor involved in Gaston County, and then became postmaster. I was postmaster in Spruce Pine, Pisgah Forest, Forest City. Worked in a lot of offices, Lawndale, Kaiser. So I've been around this area a lot, and I used to work from Wilmington to Franklin, checking postal routes. And I heard you talking about the food drive this morning, which is a great thing. I was involved in that for many years. So I've tried to serve my country, and I retired, and now I thought, our country's in devastation. We need to get out there as good people and see what we can do.
You're a family man. Tell me, you've got 2 children, I believe, a son and a daughter?
I do. My daughter's Stephanie. She's lives with us on our little farm, has horses and such things like that, and she's a pharmacy tech. My son's a first lieutenant in the Army, a decorated veteran from being in Korea with the 1st Cavalry. Matter of fact, he got back from Korea a couple months ago, and he's got his Stetson hat now, which the cavalry gets to wear.
Oh, right.
So
yeah,
he's,
right.
I'm very proud. I've been to Fort Hood and visited him a couple times. He's coming home this June to visit. He's a great guy, serve his country, and I'm proud of him. My wife, we've been married since 1978, my high school sweetheart, and she's my right hand, and we travel together, whether it's in Okinawa, New Mexico, wherever we've been. We live in a little community called Newhouse in between Shelby, Polkville, and a little place called Ellenburg out in Cleveland County.
Well, let me ask you this: why decide to run at this time? Why you decided to throw your hat into the ring, as they say?
Well, I've seen the devastation. I've seen the devastation of losing jobs, furniture factories, textiles, and the NAFTA, the CAFTA jobs going down south, and people like Freightliner Company in Gaston County who make trucks, and they're getting laid off, and yet Mexico has 2 plants, and they're making trucks for Freightliners and selling them in America, and our representatives have sold us out, and I just feel betrayed, and I know a lot of people I talk to feel betrayed by our representatives because it seems like all they do is go to Washington, D.C. and worry about getting reelected and become a higher platform for themselves. And I decided as an American, loving God, family, and country, that I need to get involved and let people know what's going on and try to go to Washington, D.C. For 4 to 6 years, that's all, and help our country and have a coalition of people that will work together to make America great again. And hopefully we'll get the right president in there that we can have a good coalition. So that's what I want to do, is go represent the people and then come back home and hope America continue to be the greatest country in the world.
You mentioned get the right president in there. Of course, the presumptive candidate for the Republican Party, Donald Trump. How do you feel about Mr. Trump, and if you were to be elected, to work with Mr. Trump?
Oh, I would be proud to work with any conservative Republican in Washington, D.C. And I think that Mr. Trump is a little crude. I think he really cares about our country. He has to be a good businessman for what he's done in his career. And I think other countries that do business with America and the trade practices that are unfair, I think, will fear him because he knows what's going on. And I think that the biggest thing is Mr. Trump will need to surround himself with good people that's going to give him information that's needed for betterment of America and use that information that's needed, because one man can't do it alone. So the main thing is it's a high office, but the main thing is put people in offices as his staff that's going to give him the right answers, and then we can go from there to make sure that America is growing with the economic or the military. I mean, to protect our military. We're asking them to go and give their lives for our country, and yet a lot of times I feel like we're not backing them like we need to do.
You mentioned jobs, I guess. Is that going to be the number one thing that is a concern, and maybe what you're running on is jobs? Because that's what I'm hearing from you this morning.
Yeah. To talking to people all around, one of the biggest concerns is their jobs. Now, don't get me wrong, people. We talk about the Bible and the Constitution because I feel like that's two documents you need to read, protect, and defend, because I feel like that the government we have now are coming after that, and for Second Amendment right or free speech or whatever. But jobs is, you have to put food on the table for you people, and when you take people's jobs away, you take their dignity away, and when you take someone's dignity away, then they don't feel worth, and they feel like they're out there just struggling and nobody cares. So a lot of times that's when we have problems. So yes, jobs are important to put food on the table, but also give people respect, and make America a hardworking a country that it used to be, and let our free thinkers get out there and find ways to create jobs. We hinder them so much, the government does, with over-regulation and different things, and while other countries are producing products. We need to get back to our manufacturing and our technical jobs, not just our higher skill jobs, because people out there, a lot of people want to be make furniture or whatever, but the thing is, we have to find avenues and an environment that's conducive to make sure people can create jobs and not hold them back as overtaxing and burdensome regulations we have.
Our guest this morning is Jeff Gregory. He is the Republican primary candidate, 10th District for North Carolina. We'll be back and talk more with Mr. Gregory after this short break. Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Rowe on 1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. Our guest this morning, Jeff Gregory, Republican primary candidate, 10th District for North Carolina. I'd like to ask you, Mr. Gregory, about the campaign, if we could do that to kind of start off this segment. Tell me about the campaign, the folks you've been meeting, and what you've been hearing out there.
It's great. The people out there, I think we still have a lot of patriotic people who are concerned about our country, who love our country, love our military. They're worried about how the government is looking at our country and what the future is, and are the government's concerned like they are, that the hard tax-paying people are being ignored. And I feel like that they really love God, family, and country, and they're concerned about jobs. People say, I lost my job, and there's not a job out there. They want me to go back to school, and, I'm too old. And the thing is, we have done them wrong. We've sent our jobs south, just like, I believe Ross Perot said, you'll hear that sucking sound going south, and when we start making these trade, and they're unfair trade agreements. There's no way we compete with cheap labor, and not just that, but we're over-regulated and things like that. And the people will speak to you once you approach them, and they can see that you're sincere and you care. And then they'll open up to you and tell you, Mr. Gregory, I'm concerned about the future of my kids, our grandkids, right. About how they're looking at freedom of speech, the Second Amendment. People are worried about, their guns. And I explain to them, we're have a larger army than they are. We're the voters. We have numbers, and we can take care of this if we put the right people in office to go up there and it's going to look out for God, family, and country. Because that's what our country, the Constitution and the Bible, that's the two things that's made us great and has made this country what it is. And the people, the great generals and the humble soldiers that's died through the years that served for us to make sure that we have those freedoms. And people understand that. A lot of times I think politicians think that people don't understand what's going on. But they do. They're just feared of speaking out sometimes because they're like, nobody cares.
Briefly, did this redistricting interrupt the campaign? Do you feel that was a difficult thing to overcome, or is it just one of those things that you have to deal with and you just move on?
Well, it didn't interrupt mine because, naturally, I from the get-go, I filed and I started campaigning. And I think that it may have interrupted some a little bit because it was a gentleman that had filed after the redistricting who wasn't in the campaign, so we had to look at him and where he's from. Like the gentleman that from Belmont, and there's a gentleman too that he's not even from this area. He lives on the eastern part of Mr. Wiley. He lives on the eastern part of North Carolina. I don't think he's registered in this district, so I understood all of that. And they haven't been out campaigning. I don't know what their purpose is or what they're trying to prove, but I think right now it's the congressman and myself that. Of course, I have a small group of people that I haven't took any money from anybody, so I haven't tried to gather any funding, so it didn't stop me there because I haven't, and everybody understands, it's $2,000 just to file. So, I funded myself and not looking to get any funds. So I'm sure that Mr. McHenry already had his funds in his war chest. I think $1 million, and I think $1.2 million. But the thing is, no, it hasn't stopped me. I've gone to the festivals as far as I even went to Longview out here. I went to Bessemer City. I've been to Belmont, Lincolnton, all around anywhere I can go. So I've been doing that from the beginning.
I want to ask you some very specific things this morning about, let's get into some of the things that we're talking about with our country. Let's start with foreign policy. I kind of got a general idea from what we've talked about earlier, but specifically, how do you feel about the current foreign policy and where you'd like to see it go, sir? Well,
we have a couple of things as our current policy as far as that. You can look at what about the type of the issues as far as ISIS and the terrorists. Well, everybody has to understand that we have to take care of that situation. Anybody that's an enemy of the state, we have to take care of, because if we don't, then they'll have sales in America. And I'm not sure that the cancer is not within us right now. So I think we need a strong person that's going to be in the office up there, and a strong Congress like myself who's going to align himself with like-minded people who care about the military and the people. And look at Benghazi, what happened. I was in Asheville a couple weeks ago at the Lincoln Reagan dinner, and that gentleman that's on that movie 13 Hours was there speaking. He was in Benghazi. He told the story, and if you have watched the movie, it's also overwhelming but heartbreaking, because the way the military was done over there and left alone. And he even explained that the C-130 that flew them out of there was not a U.S. C-130. It was a militia flight with the Libyan militia that flew him out of there. So the things are, we're concerned about the military. And when we send them overseas, we need to make sure they're prepared, have everything they need, because there's somebody's son or daughter that's going over there to protect our country. And as far as the economic end of it, we had to look at industrial espionage as far as China and the things they're doing, the NAFTA, the CAFTA, the jobs going to Mexico, the jobs going to Honduras. We got to have to come up with a plan to make sure that we can compete and that America is solvent and the people have jobs. So we got to put the right people. And believe it or not, Donald Trump has to have a good mind as far as economics. Look what he's done in his life. So he has to surround himself with good people that know how to make things work, and good congressmen that's going to make sure that happens.
And I do want to ask specifically, because it is a problem here in western North Carolina, about the war on drugs, how the United States is doing there, and your opinion on the war on drugs and what we can do to help with that situation, especially with our young folks and the addiction rates that are happening right now, right here in our own backyard.
Well, a lot of it is again, jobs. People are out there, they don't have jobs, things to do, so a lot of people go to drugs for depression, or they go to drugs to have something to do, or they go to make money selling drugs. But the other thing is you got to look at Mexico and where these drugs are coming from. They're not cooperating with America. We spend all this money out there, and we're constantly blowing up tunnels, and we have men running the border patrol down there that we don't give them the okay to do what they have to do. And, we need to look at Mexico. And I really think if you get Jeff Gregory elected and the right president up there and people, they're going to look at Mexico and say, listen, you're going to have to start cooperating with us. Even if we have to do things like put sanctions on them like we've done other places. For instance, you could stop flights to, a lot of people's not going to like it, but you need extreme measures. You could stop flight to Cancun, to all these resorts they have there, and tell the big man, once you take the money from the big business, they're going to look at you and say, what's going on? What can we do? And not only that, these people just coming across the borders bringing these drugs, and we slap them on the hand, something's not right. If you really want to go to war to something, you have to decide where you're going to win the war. So if we're going to win the war, we got to do the right things and the extreme things to make sure these people know, because these cartels, they'll do whatever it takes. They'll kidnap kids, cut people's heads off, hang them from a bridge or whatever. So they know what it takes. And the thing is, if we're going to support our Border Patrol, if you have to send the National Guard down there, it's not going to cost us anything. You know why? The National Guard, for 2 weeks out of a year, they train. You have 50 states National Guard. Rotate 2 states every 2 weeks. Send them down there, let them do their duty, let them come home. And by the end of the year, you've already rotated 50 states. Instead of sending them overseas, let them guard our border. We need our borders protected for a sovereign nation, and our people need it protected. And drugs are destroying our country.
We always like to give our candidates 1 minute before we wrap up. And, sir, you have 1 minute at the microphone. It's up to you, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff Gregory, Republican primary candidate, 10th District of North Carolina. Mr. Gregory, you have a minute, sir.
I am concerned about our country. I do believe in God, family, and country. I do believe that the Bible and the Constitution are the two documents you need to read, cherish, and protect, because they are coming after them. And I say the current government. We got to look at putting jobs back in Western North Carolina, because we have been devastated. I've seen the devastation. I've been a part of it. I've seen my family. I've seen other people's families, and they look at what are we going to do, and you see how they despaired. And I really believe that we can do it if we put the right people back in Washington, D.C. Someone asked me, Mr. Gregory, is the country for sale? I said, no, they're giving it away. And that's what's sad. They really are giving away. You know, everybody says, what kind of laws are you going to make? I think we need to repeal a lot of laws that are burdensome on our industries and our people, you know, and never should anybody be concerned about losing their constitutional rights.
Mr. Gregory, I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Do appreciate it. I know you're going to go over and talk to him on the TV side now, so watch for Mr. Jeff Gregory on WHKY TV.